I'm out here at the Iowa City Landfill and Recycling Center. I'm here with Jane Welch, a recycling coordinator for the City of Iowa City.
Glad to be here, Jack.
And as you can see, we're here sorting trash. What might not be so obvious, though, is why we're doing that. Jane, can you talk a little bit about how this role actually plays a big part in how you organize your waste reduction efforts?
So the Iowa City Landfill and Recycling Center is one of several landfills across the state of Iowa that participated in the 2017 Iowa Statewide Waste Characterization Study. And waste studies just like this are very important because they help us determine exactly what's going into the Iowa City landfill, what types of waste, and exactly what amounts of each type of waste are entering the landfill. This waste study involves sorting materials into 61 different categories, and those categories are fairly specific. So something like a retail shopping bag, that's a category. Loose food waste, or even something like clear glass versus green and brown glass, those are all separate categories. So from these random waste samples that came into the landfill, we sorted the materials into those 61 different categories, and then weights are recorded for each material that's sorted. So these studies are conducted about every 6 years, and they help us see over time how our waste streams change. So a great example of that from the 2011 to the 2017 study is food waste. We actually saw about a 10% increase in food waste. And with that, we've determined that, all right, in our programming, in our education and outreach, we want to focus more on food waste reduction since we are seeing that increase in the landfill.
And what were some of the themes that were noticeable across the state?
So we saw, especially at the Iowa City landfill, a good majority of what was going into the waste sort was either recyclable, compostable, or reusable. And across the state, that was the trend as well. About 70% of the materials ending up in the waste sorts in Iowa were either recyclable, compostable, and reusable. So a lot of material that potentially could have been diverted instead of ending up in the landfill.
Let's talk about a few specific materials. Iowa City actually saw a drop in cardboard being thrown away. Talk about that as well as a recently enacted cardboard ban that was put in place to help reduce that number.
Yeah, in the 2017 study, we found that there's about 3% cardboard going into the Iowa City landfill, which is around 4,000 tons of material. And you're right, Jack, that is a decrease from our 2011 waste study. Now, while that's a decrease, that's still 4,000 tons of material that we don't want ending up in the Iowa City landfill. So with that, we did enact a cardboard ban. And what that means is that anyone served by the Iowa City Landfill and Recycling Center, so that's anyone in Johnson County and also the cities of Riverside and Kelowna, cannot throw cardboard away in the trash anymore. So it does need to go through a recycling program.
Food waste plays a big role here, amounting to a quarter of what ends up in the landfill. Can you talk a little bit about preventative efforts there?
Definitely. So that 25% equates to around 34,000 tons of food waste, which is a lot of food waste. Definitely looking to figure out ways to reduce that and work with community members and businesses to learn different strategies for food waste reduction. First of all, I want to explain a little bit about food waste. So there's two main types of food waste. The first one is preventative. So it's things like this, pile of noodles here. It's anything like leftovers on your plate that maybe didn't get eaten, moldy bread, basically anything that should have been eaten but instead got thrown in the trash. And this is the type of food waste that we're really trying to reduce. The other type of food waste is called non-edible food waste, and that's items like coffee grounds, banana peels, parts of food where we traditionally just don't eat them. So we do expect that type of food waste. Now, for the preventative especially, we're working towards source reduction. So what that means is that we want food waste to be prevented. We don't want it to be formed in the first place. That's the ultimate goal. And so with that, one of the programs that we work with is the Environmental Protection Agency's Food Too Good to Waste program. And this is a source reduction campaign focused on all sorts of different strategies and resources to get residents more mindful of food at every stage of the process. So that's from being at the grocery store, when you're actually buying the food, to when you get it home, you're storing it, you're preparing those meals, and then most importantly also making sure that you're mindful of what's left so that it gets used up.
Another step the city has taken is adding curbside composting. How does that work?
So anyone that has curbside, what we've traditionally called yard waste collection, we're now trying to gear more towards organics collection since it is including food waste at this point. That means that if you have a yard waste container that you've been using, you can now toss your pizza box, your coffee grounds, eggshells, whatever that organic food waste might be, in with those leaves and lawn clippings. So all your yard waste and food waste can get mixed together in that bin. That's totally fine because it ends up in the same pile at the landfill to be turned into compost.
You can't really talk about waste reduction without mentioning plastic. What are some of the things that are being thrown out that could be going into curbside recycling? or things that can be recycled in other ways?
So in terms of what we saw in this most recent waste study, organics and paper were the biggest categories at 25% each. Plastics were the third. What's going into the landfill, around 17% is plastic. And of that, a good majority is plastic film, followed by plastics that are number 1 through number 7. And most of number 1 through number 7 are actually recyclable. So again, a good amount of plastics ending up in the landfill that could have been diverted through recycling programs. There's also a large volume of plastic bags ending up in the Iowa City landfill, and we definitely saw that through this waste sort as well. Looking at plastic bags, it's a very difficult to recycle material, and there's a few reasons for that. The first big reason that's problematic is that at sorting facilities, they're actually an operational hazard. They get caught up in the machinery, and it makes it very difficult to actually pull them out of the machinery. And then also, in terms of the recycling market, plastic bags are typically just of very little value, which is another issue.
So maybe bringing reusable shopping bags would be a great way to help out.
Absolutely, and we definitely encourage that whenever possible, use a reusable shopping bag over a disposable plastic bag.
Another tough one is glass, because that also can't go in curbside recycling. What are ways that people can recycle that still throughout the city?
So certain types of glass containers can actually be redeemed for that 5 cents. You can go back to the store and get some money back for that. And then the other option is we do have glass recycling at our recycling drop-off locations in Iowa City, and all that information is on our recycling page on the city website.
Thank you so much for sharing these different ways that people can help reduce waste and keep our community moving in the right direction.
No problem. Thank you, Jack.
Well, should we get to sorting?
Absolutely. Let's do it.